Hey guys, Luke here, and I'm here to give my predictions for the preliminary final clash between the Sydney Roosters and the Melbourne Storm. Now, last night, the Canberra Raiders, they booked their spot into the 2019 NRL Grand Final. Who are they going to be versing? Is it going to be the Roosters, or is it going to be the Storm? Now, just before we get into the video, bear with me, guys. Just like yesterday, my voice and throat, it's pretty mess. I've got tonsillitis, but I'm going to push through it to get the video out for you guys. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the game and make my predictions. So the Roosters and Storm, I've got to say, it does feel weird talking about this game and it not being the Grand Final. I think probably about 90% of the Australian population thought that this was going to be the Grand Final. Once we got into the final series, even before the finals had started, I think a lot of people would have predicted that this would have been the Grand Final. However, Storm lost to the Raiders, and now the Raiders find themselves in the Grand Final. So it kind of feels like we're getting a Grand Final a week early. I know whoever wins this one is no guarantee to win next week. But yeah, this does feel like a more important clash than what I feel even the Grand Final might be. I think it's safe to say that both the Roosters and the Storm have been the benchmark, not just this year, but for the last few years. The Roosters obviously last year won it, but the Storm, they've been making Grand Final after Grand Final after Grand Final. That's why I find this game so hard to make a prediction, because I look at these sides, and to be honest with you, I look at the Roosters side and I say their side on paper, even in terms of how they've played, they're just so much better than every other team, including the Storm. However, the Storm have beat them this year, and also the fact that the Storm they just have a knack of making Grand Finals. Like I said, I think the last Grand Final they didn't make was 2015. I think from 2016, 2017, 2018, they've made the Grand Final. Granted, they've only won the one Grand Final, but they've been there, and they just find a way of making it to the big dance. Now, the Roosters, I honestly think they're going to go back-to-back. The Storm, I think it's going to be a great test for them. I think if there's any team that can beat the Roosters, it will be the Storm. However, I don't know. I just can't see anyone beating the Roosters at this point. That being said, though, Jared Hargreaves is out, and I'm pretty sure the Roosters have a very poor win percentage with him not playing. Now, I don't know the exact details of it. I could even be wrong. I could have just read something wrong. I think it was in the 30% of their win percentage, and that's pretty low, and he is a very, very influential player. I know a lot of talk these days is Papali's best prop and Clemmer and all that, but Hargreaves has been so good for so long. He's a leader too, so he's very, very good in terms of, you know, actual playing ability as well as leading the team around. He's just such a good player, such an influential player, and the fact that he's not going to be there, I think he's going to be a big loss for the Roosters. Takiaho is a very good replacement, but Takiaho, he was starting at lock anyways. He's used to starting, but Hargreaves, he's a big loss, and I don't think they're a like-for-like replacement. I feel like Hargreaves is one of those players that I feel like everyone kind of knows he's a good player. They feel like he's a pretty solid player, but they don't realize how influential he actually is until he's not there. And I feel like it'll be one of those games, because to be honest with you, when Melbourne lost a few weeks ago, I was thinking, yeah, Roosters are they're just gonna annihilate the Storm. But now that Hargreaves is out, it kind of just plants that little seed of doubt in my mind, and I think with a lot of people's mind. I've seen a lot of people all of a sudden tipping the Storm, and I mean, if you go off sort of the history, I don't know why you would kind of pick the Storm. I mean, we saw how they got decimated in the Grand Final last year, and that was carrying Cooper Cronk. Luke Keary just destroyed them himself. Latrell Mitchell was very good. In the big games, the Storm haven't really stepped up against the Roosters, and yet there's a lot of people tipping the Storm this week. It's away from home. They're playing at SCG. I feel like that's another thing that also hasn't been taken into consideration by a lot of people. Now, I don't know for sure. I don't know this for a fact, but you see a lot of the pundits and stuff, they talk about the SCG and about it being hard to play. I think Andrew Johns is someone who talks about it a lot, about just there being so much space on the sidelines and that it's kind of hard to get your bearings and where you are on the field. Now, none of the Storm players, apart from Cameron Smith, have actually played there. So your Cameron Munsters, he's not really a organising half. You add in Jerome Hughes isn't either. And also, I'd say their kicking ability is not exactly a strength of theirs. And your Pappenhausen and stuff, they haven't got a lot of experience in that spine. Apart from, oh, well, they do, but in terms of Pappenhausen and Jerome Hughes, there's not that much experience. And Jerome Hughes, he's not a halfback. Now, don't get me wrong, he's done a phenomenal job at halfback when he's played there, 5'8", fullback, wherever he's played, he's done a great job. But him up against Cooper Cronk and Luke Keary, I just can't see it going well for him or the Storm. Also not going well for the Storm is the fact that Vunivalu is out. Now, I think it's just that 1 week. I assume if they make the Grand Final, he'll play the Grand Final, but he's been ruled out. he is a big loss. He is quite good. He's pretty safe under the high ball. He makes good meters and kick returns. He's a great finisher. He sometimes does some very, very stupid things. Has a tendency to give away a penalty or two, but you can't say that Vunivalu is not a good player. In saying that though, whoever they bring in, I'm sure they'll do a decent job. Whoever Melbourne always bring in, they do a decent job. But Daniel Tupou, Brett Morris, whoever it is who's going to be up against this player, I don't know if it's going to be Shandor Earl or if it's going to be someone else coming in on the wing there, but maybe Will Chambers will go straight to the wing. I don't know. They have a few options there, the Storm. But yeah, Will Chambers on the bench in itself is quite a strange one. I don't necessarily dislike him being on the bench. I feel like he's the sort of player who, I don't know, he's kind of got that aggressiveness about him and stuff that, you know, if you throw him in the forwards, he can do a bit of a job for you. He's pretty mobile. I believe he's actually played a little bit in the forwards for the Indigenous side, and I think I remember him doing okay. I think this was when the Indigenous side didn't really have many forwards apart from props and that. But yeah, Will Chambers, he is a good player. I don't necessarily like him as a player, but you can't doubt his ability, and whether he's on the bench, whether he's starting, you're still going to get a pretty decent game from him. Just don't put him up against Latrell Mitchell, for God's sake. Now, the only other thing to note in terms of the ins and outs for these teams is the fact that Sam Verrills is going to be playing. I'm pretty sure Jake Friend's been ruled out. I don't know if that was expected. I know he wasn't named in the number 9 or anything, but he was named on an extended bench. I suppose there was sort of the little suspicion that he might have played a few mind games there. But I think Sam Verrills actually, I don't know, he's been such a good find for the Roosters. I mean, the Roosters have a knack of finding these players. Hey, it's weird. It's weird how the Roosters do that, hey. But Sam Verrills seems like a pretty good player. Might actually, I'm not going to say he's better than Jake Friend, but in terms of right now, he's definitely the best option for the Roosters at this point. I don't know if you would risk throwing Jake Friend in for a grand final or preliminary final match with this much pressure. Now, I'm not saying Jake Friend couldn't handle it. It's just, why change things when things are going so well for the Roosters at this point? Verrills is doing a great job. There's really no need to take him out, so just leave him in there. Now, I did mention this briefly just a little bit ago, but both these teams have played twice this year. Both have got wins over each other. Now, we can't forget that great game in Melbourne where Melbourne had the big lead. Roosters came back. Latrell Mitchell kicked that big ass field goal from, I think it was like 40 metres out. What a field goal it was. Wait, Luke. You're so close to getting it right. Yes, there was a big comeback. Yes, Latrell Mitchell kicked a field goal from about 40 out to win the game. But it was actually the Roosters who had a big lead and the Storm who did the comeback. Just, you know, they couldn't win the game. I gotta say though, once again, just what a field goal that was. It's like, we all know Latrell Mitchell is good, but when you see stuff like that, it just reminds you of how good he actually is. Anyways, I better let you get back to the video. I thought I'd just correct myself before you guys correct me in the comments section. So there you go, I'm correcting myself. And then the Storm went to Adelaide, I think it was. Definitely wasn't at SCG as to why they haven't played at the SCG at the Storm players, but they did get a win over the Roosters. I don't know if the Roosters are full strength or not, but they definitely got a win. I think it was about 14-12. End of the day, both of the clashes have been very, very close. I don't see this being any different. I expect this to be a close game. Now look, in terms of predicting a winner, I do think the Roosters are going to win. I've already made that very clear. I think the Roosters win 1-12, but if there's any team that can match it, and we know for sure they can match it with the Roosters, it's the Melbourne Storm. Like I said, they've already beat them this year. They have all the experience in the world. Cameron Smith is there. They're just a very, very good team. They're just a well-oiled machine, Melbourne. No matter what, they're always so consistent. You know that if the Roosters, if they play a pretty shit game, you know that Melbourne Storm will take advantage of that, that's for sure. So yeah, I think this is going to be a very, very tight clash. I think if the Roosters can play anywhere from a 7 out of 10 and up, I think they win this one pretty comfortably. I say comfortably, I still think it'll be 1-12. It'll be a close score-wise, but I still think they'll win. But anywhere under that, and I think the Storm have got them covered. I think Roosters can't afford to be making errors in that because Melbourne are they're just so, I don't know, they're just a well-oiled machine. They'll take advantage of it. But I don't think the Roosters will make errors. I think they'll be on point. I think they'll play an A+ game. I expect the Roosters to win this one. So there we have it. I think the Roosters are going to win. Do you think the Roosters are going to win? Leave in the comment section below. Roosters or Storm? Anyway, guys, that is the end of the video. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke on YT. My Facebook page is also in the description below. And go ahead and add me on Snapchat. It's the same as what's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke on YT. Well, Canberra Raiders are in the grand final. Who will be joining them? Will it be the Roosters or the Storm? I don't know. Probably the Roosters. Who knows? Could be the Storm, though. But either way, it's going to be a great game tonight, and the grand final will be a great game as well. Righto, guys, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.